This is Bob, a senior in high school, and he has known Alice ever since they were in the 3rd grade. Over the years, they've grown together, laughed and cried together, and told each other all about their fears and dreams. When Alice got the stomach flu in the 8th grade, Bob video chatted with her for a whole week to help her with the classes she missed. And when Bob's dog Puddles passed away just a year ago, Alice wouldn't let him be alone until he assured her he would be okay. But through all the ups and downs, Bob never saw Alice as more than just a friend, and he's pretty sure that Alice feels the same way about him. Recently, however, Bob has been feeling a little odd every time he's around Alice. Whenever the two would go out to eat, he would feel this rumbling sensation in the pit of his stomach, and it didn't seem like indigestion. Sometimes when he walked with Alice on the way to class, he would catch a whiff of her tropical shampoo and feel his heartbeat begin to accelerate. And although Bob would never admit it, last week when he and Alice were studying in the library, he found himself staring at 2 big round spheres on her body, her eyes. So Bob is confused now and kind of scared. How exactly should he define his relationship with Alice? And can they stay friends for life? To tackle this question, let's first consider what we mean by the word friend. According to dictionary.com, a friend is a person attached to another by feelings of affection. Oxford Languages adds that the relationship should typically be exclusive of sexual relations, and I would add exclusive of romantic relations as well. So let us put those definitions together and say that a friend is a person connected to another by non-sexual, non-romantic feelings of affection. Amazing! Now, how then do we define an opposite-sex friend? Well, the easiest way would be as a friend who has a greater than 0 probability of becoming a future sexual or romantic partner. Alright, so if we go back to Bob's situation, the first thing he should understand is that Alice is not simply just a friend, but rather a friend he might fall in love with someday. The reason for this is so that he can wipe away any illusion that they will for sure stay friends forever. Instead, he can start to tackle a more nuanced question. What is the probability that their friendship will last? Well, the answer depends on a variety of factors, and to determine the likelihood that a person can stay friends with someone of the opposite sex, I've developed a formula called the Potential Simp Score, or PSS, which equals physical attraction times matching passions times worldly outlook. Each factor in this equation will be scored from a range of 0 to 10 to get a final PSS out of 1000. The lower your PSS for your opposite sex friend, the more likely your friendship is to last. Keep in mind, however, that you can only find your own PSS for your friend and speculate as to what their PSS is for you. Okay, getting back to the equation, let's start with the first factor, which is physical attraction. Long story short, this factor is simply about how much you want to mate with your opposite sex friend, and we can segment it into the areas of face, fashion, and body. All you have to do is write down each area and give your friend a score from 0 to 10 in each one. For example, if Alice was finding her PSS for Bob and thinks that his forehead is too big, hates his taste in shoes, and God forbid dubs him as too vertically challenged, she might write down a 3 for face, 1 for fashion, and 2 for body. Take an average of the scores in the 3 areas, and you have the physical attraction subscore of your potential simp score. And if this subscore is super low, or even 0 for that matter, then congratulations, your PSS will also be low, making your opposite sex friendship more likely to last. Now, the interesting thing about the physical attraction factor is that it can explain why emotional pain can arise between 2 opposite sex friends who do not exhibit the same level of attraction towards each other. Take, for example, that Bob is a 1 out of 10 in the eyes of Alice, and Alice is a 10 out of 10 in the eyes of Bob. If we imagine that their matching passions and worldly outlook both score an 8, then Bob's PSS for Alice is going to be a hefty 640, whereas Alice's PSS for Bob is going to be a measly 64, causing Bob to enter what is commonly known as the friend zone. If Bob keeps hanging around Alice with romantic motives when Alice only desires to be friends with Bob, Bob may eventually get hurt, and Alice may even feel partially responsible. And I know this may sound sad for my unconventionally beautiful friends out there, that your opposite sex friend is just friends with you because they're not attracted to you. But hey, as Einstein once said, peace can only be achieved by understanding. The next step to determine your potential simp score for your opposite sex friend is to find out your matching passions, and this is how it works. To start, write down a list of all the activities that you and your friend both enjoy doing. Then, on the left, write down a number from 0 to 10 to represent how much you like that activity. And on the right, do the same for how much you think your friend likes that activity. For example, say that Bob is finding his PSS for Alice, and that Bob and Alice both enjoy playing tennis for fun. However, if Bob thinks that he likes tennis a little more than Alice does, he could write down a 9 on the left for himself, and maybe a 7 on the right for Alice. In this step, try to use your best guess for your friend's preference, but don't worry if you don't get it exactly right because you're not a mind reader. After that, write down a list of all the activities that only your friend likes and that you don't really like, and vice versa. For this part of the list, on the left side, write down a number between 0 and -10 to represent how much you dislike that activity, and a number from 0 and 10 on the right side to represent how much your friend likes that activity. Do the same with activities that only you like, but your friend does not. So if we go back to Bob, he can write down shopping, which he hates but Alice loves. He would then put a -10 on the left for himself and write down a +10 on the right for Alice. On the other hand, if he likes video games and Alice does not, he might put a 10 on the left for himself and a -10 on the right for Alice. When you're finished with the entire list, stand back, take a long look, and try to weigh everything on a scale. Every similar hobby that you share with your friend, say within a 2-point difference, would increase your matching passion subscore, whereas every hobby that one of you likes and the other dislikes would decrease it. And remember that the subscore will be from 0 to 10 since it cannot be negative. So what is the point of this factor of your PSS? It's mainly for you to decide whether or not the two of you can share fun experiences together as romantic partners. If your partner does not have the same level of enthusiasm as you for similar activities, you both will end up making a lot of compromises while dating, and wish you had stayed friends instead. So like the first factor of physical attraction, a lower score in matching passions will help lower your PSS and increase the probability that your opposite sex friendship is going to last. Finally, the last factor of the potential simp score is worldly outlook, and this is the most complicated part of the equation because it involves analyzing your belief system and comparing it to your friends. To find this score, first write down a list of values that you believe to be your friend's core values that they will never compromise on. Next, on the right side of each value, rate your ability to accept or match that value from a 0 to 10, 0 being the lowest. Finally, to get to your subscore for the worldly outlook factor, go down the list and pick the lowest number you can find, and this will be what I call your gatekeeper value. And I call it that because, like a gatekeeper, this value prevents the idea of your friend as a romantic partner from ever entering your mind. To help you visualize this, here are 2 examples. Say Bob is finding his PSS for Alice and knows that she wants kids in the future, whereas he does not. He would then proceed to write down something like wants kids. In this situation, since Bob would have to sacrifice his vision for the future for him and Alice to ever be together, he might rate this value a 0, making it his gatekeeper value. A more intangible example would be if Bob believed humans were inherently good, whereas Alice believed they were inherently evil. Such a difference in worldview could be a source of heated arguments and differing choices if they ever entered a romantic partnership. But since there seems to be more possibility for change than the first value, Bob might rate this value a 1. Now, it's not his gatekeeper value as long as his view on kids differs with Alice's, but it could one day if that view changes and there are no other values with a rating of 0. And even if you are willing to compromise on the other parts of your outlook, you can never get from friend to romantic partner unless you get past the gatekeeper value. On the other hand, the disappearance of a single gatekeeper value can catapult a PSS from a very low score to a very high score if physical attraction and matching passions also score very high. Imagine a situation where Bob and Alice had almost everything in common except for the desire to have kids, and one day Bob decides that he also wants kids. Suddenly, the two would make great romantic partners. As a result, it could be dangerous to keep an opposite-sex friend with a low PSS score solely on the basis of a singular gatekeeper value. In other words, the more gatekeeper values that you have on your list, the more ways exist for your worldly outlook subscore to stay low, making it more likely your friendship will last. Okay, so when all is said and done, you've calculated your score for the 3 factors and now have a total PSS out of 1,000 sitting in front of you. But how exactly can you use it to determine how likely your friendship will last? A baseline rule to help you is that any score between 0 and 249 is a most likely yes. Between 250 and 499 is a maybe yes. 500 to 749 is a probably no, and 750 to 1000 is a you're near delusional if you think you can stay platonic. And the earlier on in your friendship you can understand your PSS, the less agony you will have to suffer later on in deciding whether or not you should be asking them to be a romantic partner. Keep in mind though, that since your PSS for an opposite-sex friend is not static, your choice may evolve as you and your friend change over time. So take the PSS with a grain of salt, as it is only a rough guide to help you make better decisions about your opposite-sex relationships. So at the end of the day, can your opposite-sex friendship really last? Well, the harsh answer is only sometimes, and you can find out how likely by calculating your PSS for your friend, and maybe even by asking for their PSS for you. The ironic thing? The less compatible that you and your opposite-sex friend are, the more likely you are to keep your friendship for life. Man, the truth is really not always pleasant, is it? But it will set you free. And to those who think that two friends with high PSSs for each other can control their urges using pure willpower, let me pose this question to you. What is going to happen when one of you gets into a relationship with someone else? The situation becomes unbelievably tricky. Because if you think about it, a person's significant other should be the one out there that has the highest PSS out of all the members of that sex, right? In that case, if you keep high PSS opposite-sex friendships while in a relationship, does that mean that there is always a chance for the PSS of these friends to be higher than the one with your significant other? What in the world are you supposed to do then? Who should you prioritize? Well, do not fear, because the way to analyze that situation is by adding something called the J factor into your potential simp score, which will convert it into a realized simp score, or RSS. Before a deeper dive into that, please stay tuned for a future video. Thanks for watching, and stay curious.